In the 1960s, economist Thomas Schelling started to wonder about how decisions made by individuals aggregate up into outcomes seen across all of society, and how those outcomes might be things that each individual didn't actually plan or maybe didn't even want. And one of the applications he put this to was racial segregation, and his model for this has become quite famous. So imagine looking down on a city from a bird's eye view, and the city can be simplified into a grid, and each individual has a number of neighbours, and the individual will stay put as long as a certain proportion of their neighbours are the same race as they are. Otherwise they will move. And the model progresses, it runs, and people move about, and eventually it settles into a situation where everybody is happy. And we have it here. So let's have a look. So on the right, we have a racial map of the city of Chicago. Now there are almost 3 million people living there, and you can see that there are clear racial boundaries. So each colour represents a race, and there are clearly neighbourhoods that belong to different races. And on the left, we have Schelling's model. Now my computer can't cope with 3 million agents, so I've got, I think, 5,000 here, and they are evenly split between a red race and a green race. And at the minute, if I run it, people will stay put as long as half of their neighbours are of the same race as they are. And the model reasonably quickly converges to a state where everybody is happy, but what we don't see are these clear racial boundaries. Okay, so one interesting extension that we can do to this model is to vary the proportions of each race and vary the threshold of happiness that each race has. And I've done that here with a few hundred individuals. So here we have more reds than greens, and the greens will only be happy if 80% of their neighbours are also green, whereas the reds will be happy if 10% of their neighbours are red. Okay, so let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so over time we can see the emergence of a ghetto, and we can see the emergence of clear racial boundaries. But this does not scale up, so if we increase the number of agents to several thousand and run it again, over time people are moving, and over time we do see areas of particular races emerge, but we don't see this. So the model we have does not fully explain the racial boundaries that we can see in cities like Chicago. And Schelling knew that, so he thought that at best his model would be the third most important reason why these racial areas emerge. He said the first two were organised action, either legal or illegal, to create racial boundaries, and economic reasons. So if you have an area where housing is quite expensive, that will attract well-off people, and if you've got an area where housing is cheaper, it will attract less well-off people. Okay, so there it is, Schelling's model demonstrating how societal outcomes can emerge from individual decisions.